Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Fullest podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Bostwick, and today's guest is Terces and Matthew Engelhart, who I absolutely love and adore and have a history with. Terces actually officiated Eric and I's wedding, and Eric and I are huge fans and basically groupies of theirs, and I'm so excited to have them both on. Matthew and Terces have a unique approach to life and business. While many would say that they're busy, the Engelharts prefer to refer to their lives as full. They're the co-founders of the plant-based West Coast restaurant Cafe Gratitude in Gracias Madre, and they live and host guests on their 21-acre regenerative farm, Vila Farm, in Vacaville, California. It's one of my favorite places to visit, and they also host a number of workshops together, and Eric and I have gone to all of them. So I'm really excited to talk to them today and share more about their philosophy on life. Hi, you guys.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? And also, you forgot to say that Grace is here hosting with you.
Yes, Grace. I'm wearing Grace right now, so you might hear her a little bit. She's been part of the last few podcasts I've recorded. It's been fun. Yeah, so thanks so much, you guys, for making this happen. I know it's been, we've scheduled this a number of times. A few of them just kind of got ahead of ourselves, but then one of them was during the fires. I think it's been like a year. Terces and I have been trying to get on a podcast together, so I'm really excited to finally make it happen.
That's that full life that you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great. Well, it's great. It's great to finally have the time together. And yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many topics that I think we could cover, but this podcast in particular, I really wanted to talk about relationship, and especially because you both inspire Eric and I so much. I just think it's the perfect topic with both of you here today. And a lot of people don't know this, but you have and host a workshop called Kindred Spirit. And I'd love to know how Kindred Spirits came to be and the topics you cover in the workshop.
Well, how Kindred Spirit came to be is, one of the things that we experience is people suffer most usually around relationship and then also around money. And so, we initially had the Abounding River game and the Abounding River workbook, where we also talk a lot about the relationship with money. And then Kindred Spirit was just kind of the natural next book, which was how do we bring the same tools that we utilize to now, run a business. Also, how do you create those in a relationship format? So, it's where people most suffer. It's where we've most suffered. And so there is no not relationship. We're all in relationship. Even someone who thinks that they're going to do something completely independently actually relies on other people. That it's just not possible to think that you don't rely on other people, and thus relationship and how you communicate in relationship is of the most important. So it was actually after the Abounding River, it was the next workshop and book that we wrote and workshop that we led. We're actually getting ready to lead it this coming weekend on the farm. So it's perfect timing. You'll get us ready for it.
Have you guys had kids at Kindred Spirits before?
You mean children?
Yeah, like if a couple wanted to come.
I think we've had some nursing babies, but not. I mean, we want.
If there's young children, they'd probably have to have some kind of sitter on the farm, some kind of nanny or help, because you really want people to be able to invest the time in themselves. But of course, that's a possibility. Anything's possible, Nikki.
Yeah. Anyways, maybe Eric and I will have to do it again one of these days. It'll be fun. But
love that.
When you were actually saying that, I was thinking when you were saying how even if someone thinks they're doing something independently, it still involves relationship. And the perfect example would be like all the supply chain issues happening right now.
Yeah.
It's just whether it's in your personal life or in business or whatever, it's always going to require relationship building. I'm still kind of getting a hang of building a good relationship with my suppliers. Sometimes it's really tough. But I know that you've both been in marriages that obviously haven't worked until this one. So will you tell us about your experience going into this relationship and marriage, and why is this one so different than your last? Is it because you're with the right partner finally, or does it also have to do with the way that you committed to communicating with each other?
I think it's more about our own development than the other. If you think it's the other, then I think you're always going to be hampered. I think that first of all, I don't really like to think that my first marriage didn't work. It 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 sobered me up. I learned a lot. We're still really good friends. Yeah, it just didn't last forever. It didn't last, you know, it didn't, I wasn't able to fulfill the commitment that I made. Yes. In that way, it didn't succeed. But I think the context for any relationship, but certainly a marriage, needs to be, or it's a good idea if it's the same context. And if the context is to incarnate divine love or be the biggest, fullest expression of divine love that one can be, and using the mirror of your partner to really show you all your obstacles, to mirror back your obstacles, then I think that's the reason this marriage is still working. And because, we have a saying, they're upset is my meditation. So holding space and not having my wound get triggered when her wound is triggered. It's like here's the best way to say it. Life and marriage are a psychological gymnasium, and you get up every day to work out. In the marriage, you're working out all those little limitations, all that nasty little stuff inside us, all our little egos and our foibles, all that stuff gets exposed. And are we going to use this relationship to awaken, or is it about avoiding pain, or about leaning into the discomfort? So I would say that's the difference.
And then, Nikki, I would say there was a definitive moment for me when things shifted. So I actually have a few relationships that didn't work out, but I also, all of those relationships, I was actually still an active addict dealing with an eating disorder. So this is my first relationship outside of addiction. So I think that had a big part in it. Also, there was this definitive moment when I saw that a relationship it's similar to what Matthew said, but a little different. A relationship isn't about picking the right person as if that their people are a particular way, but it's more about how do you create that person. And the work is continuing to create that person in the best expression of themselves. So can you ongoingly create the other as the best version of themselves? Or do we get caught up in some story of who that person is? That's a lot of internal work. And Matthew was referencing the internal work as well. So can we see the opportunity of our own personal development inside of the context called relationship, where, I think, in my generation, certainly people look to relationship for safety, security, comfort, love, romance, and we're actually talking about a very different context. So
we say, if you want comfort, get a dog.
And we just got a new puppy.
Hey everyone, I want to tell you about a new airline I recently came across called Aero. I was really intrigued because they're a semi-private airline company that flies to places my husband and I either love going to or have on our bucket list, like Aspen, Jackson Hole, Sun Valley, and even places closer to home in Napa and Northern California. However, the fact that a lot of these destinations are in mountain ranges or national parks can sometimes make them difficult to get to, and usually involves multiple flights, which makes me hesitant to book with 2 kids. Then I came across Arrow and realized this could be the solution I've been waiting for, especially during these unpredictable times with COVID. Like I mentioned, Arrow is a semi-private airline that also provides amazing services that honestly for me make it absolutely worth the investment. I love that they use cabin light therapy based on psychology. For example, their custom colored lighting system helps disassociate from motion sickness, and their onboarding warm light and soft music helps calm your nervous system. I also love the fact that you can customize your meals and choose healthy options for you and the whole family. Plus, finally, our dog can come with us as they're pet friendly. Another feature I love about not flying with a major airline are their private terminals. Traveling with a toddler and a newborn already adds so much extra time and forethought getting to and from the airport, and having this expedited check-in system and also just a little more privacy to get the kids ready for the flight is priceless. If you've got an upcoming trip to an outdoors location and are looking for an alternative to the major airlines, you should definitely check out Arrow. And until December 31st, be sure to use code TheFullest when booking your next flight to get 10% off your trip, which is a big deal. So enjoy, and hopefully you check them out. I love that perspective, and I completely agree. And it's probably because I've taken your workshops, but really it's about, like you said, the mirror. It's really about personal development and growth. And I completely agree where we make that person who they are, or seeing the beautiful aspects of them and continuing to create that. But I guess my question is now, would you say that, so many people have taken your workshops. I know that you've said that there are people that come to your workshops who are thinking or considering about getting a divorce or breaking up. And I'm curious what you say to those people. I'm sure a lot of times it can be just looking at the relationship differently and how you can work on yourself, or what is this teaching you? But then at what point also is it really the time to move on as well?
Well, we actually say that to those people, we actually say, give it 6 months. Like say, okay, we're going to give it 6 months and we're going to be all in and we're going to play full out. And we share with them the tools that we share for communication and building win-win healthy relationships. And we say, utilize these tools, play full out 6 months. At the end of 6 months, if you still think you're better off splitting up, great, then make that choice at that time. And you've got to complete the commitment that you made and make a new commitment. You've got to always be living inside of a commitment. Otherwise, it gets really wishy-washy. So, it's not like when people try to stay in a relationship with a back door, it never really works because they always have the back door option. That's why we say you've got to live inside of a commitment, and that gives you the structure and the foundation to be able to work inside of on the relationship. But really, Nikki, the reason people leave a relationship is they just quit being willing to do the work that the relationship's requiring. We always say, make sure you leave it in great shape, because you're just going to start the next relationship where this one ends and you'll have the same work to do. I mean, how many times do you know people who have gotten divorced and now they're still trying to struggle through the issues they didn't get cleaned up in the relationship, only they're dealing with it with kids and grandkids and graduate. I mean, I happen to know that you know that. So,
in fact, the divorce rate for second marriages is quite a bit higher than first marriages.
Wow.
So I mean, it's not like ending a relationship is a solution to anything. Ending a relationship is just like, okay, game off. And now you've got to do game on again somewhere, because you can't live outside of relationship. And it doesn't matter. I mean, we're talking now mostly about committed relationships, but it impacts every relationship. How you are in one relationship is how you are in every relationship. But mostly we don't think that or see that. So it's a lot. I was telling Matthew as we were preparing for Kindred Spirit, a lot of people don't choose this version or path of relationship. Like, there's still a lot of people who just want comfort and security, or they just want companionship. And I don't know. I don't know how those relationships work. Look at the statistics. Relationships don't have great statistics right now in our culture. But seeing it as it's an opportunity to work on yourself, and the other person, you want them to actually trigger you or aggravate your wounds or your past incompletions, because that's the opportunity to do the work to get that complete. But this goes back to, why are we here in the beginning? Why are we all here?
What's the purpose of life?
Yeah, we actually are. For me, okay, I come from a Christian viewpoint. It's like, I'm here to learn how to love more like Jesus. That's mine. But everyone has a different expression of that. But still, it's all the same. I'm here to learn how to be more loving, more, kinder, more generous, more gracious. And so obviously the work is in all the areas where I don't want to be that way.
So, Nikki, consider that what we fall in love with initially is what drives us away and down 5, 6, 7 years down the line. Okay.
Yeah.
And think about the thing that annoys you about Eric, and it's probably the thing that you loved about him initially.
Oh, totally. He's
go ahead.
The nicest, sweetest person, and I love that about him. And then when we did the Kindred Spirits workshop, it was so funny because that's what he gave up in the workshop. At the very end, he had these pair of glasses I'll never forget. And we didn't talk about what we were going to give up before the circle. And he was like, this represents me being the nice guy that everyone loves and all this stuff. And I'm done with that.
Yeah, because nice guy is a trap. And
totally.
You want him to have freedom to be a warrior sometimes. And it drives you crazy. He's nice to everyone and invites a couple homeless people home and whatever he does, Yeah. So
totally.
in my first marriage, I was so in love. She's so artistic. And after so many years, she's so narcissistic. It's all about her. Or in Molly's first marriage, her first marriage was like, he's so chill. I need chill in my life. And 5 years later, 3 years later, he's so lazy. Or I know someone else, he's so stoic. And then a few years later, he's so cheap. Nothing changed except our view. Okay. We stop being willing to hold space or generate a love view, a view of that person. And then our ego gets in and starts trying to love. So then it becomes ego, observing ego. And that's where it all falls apart. So yeah, it's really about the inner work that our kindred spirit or our marriage is about, doing the inner work and being responsible for our experience, not depending on the other to make us anything. Because that's never going to work.
Okay. When we were just talking about this, Terces, you mentioned backdoor, not having a backdoor. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's like
not being married.
Yeah. Obviously, I just had a conversation the other day with someone who they're very committed. They want to have children. She has a child from a previous relationship. That dad has no custody. This man, and I was like, why don't you guys want to get married? And it's more an inquiry than anything. There's something in there to look at, and marriage could look anyway. There's something when you have skin in the game. It's like I was telling him, it's like playing poker for matchsticks or playing poker for money. It's a different game. So I just think, having a back door is, well, I can always leave. I can always leave. Or it's like you want to live like you can't, but always have the freedom too. It's like you just.
Well, there's going to be
a commitment.
You have a declaration, but if you renege on that declaration, it's going to have a cost.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like if you lose at poker, there's a cost and there's an edge. So,
and I think in this day and age with, we counsel and coach a lot of young people. And I think we're kind of in a culture where, people want what they want when they want it. And we live with such instant gratification. Notice the supply chain is bringing up a lot of those issues for people. Like, what do you mean I can't get what I want in 2 days?
Yeah.
And so what are you talking about? But consider most of the world, that's not true. Most of the world doesn't have the access to the resources and the things that we do. But yet we're like dependent and attached to that. So I think we're having to deal with those attachments and then look at, okay, so now what's relationship going to be about? It's not, you have to, there's a grieving process. You have to let go of it. It's not the idealistic, romantic, live happily ever after. That's probably not that realistic of a vision. But what is going to be a rewarding, fulfilling, structure of relationship? But you got to co-create that with someone. You guys have to decide. It's more of it's work. I mean, I remember when one of our kids said to us, nobody told me it was going to be this much work, but relationships a lot of work.
Two things that your generation, Nikki, have very little bandwidth is sacrifice and obedience. Those words scare the crap out of my children's generation. Okay. But if you think about it, nothing can be accomplished without sacrifice and obedience. Like whether it's being obedient to a business, or making a sacrifice for children, or making a sacrifice for business, or sacrificing the time to write a book, or whatever it is. Like, you don't think that all the greatest musicians in the world don't sacrifice a lot to get where they are? Of course they do. Like, or Olympic athletes, or whatever it is. Like, but we just, we don't want to go there. Or so marriage is the same way. It takes sacrifice. It takes some obedience. It takes some discipline.
Yeah. So when it comes to, the new age holistic world, I think right now, and in general, most people want to manifest the right ideal partner. Like you said, Terces, and I think
that's bankrupt. Completely bankrupt.
I mean,
good luck with that. I just want to have a business. I just wish I had a business that gave me an income of about, $15,000 a month. But I don't want to really work for it. Like, come on.
I mean, I think
Nikki, that's trust fund thinking.
I think, Nikki, that's partly that model that I think we have to grieve. Like that you're finding, I mean, come on, we've lived with that for so long. You're finding the one, like there's the perfect person out there, and you're gonna, whatever, do a vision board or think about it or visualize it, or awesome, great, do all that. And then when you find that person, you're still going to have to go to work, because it's not out there, it's in here. It's like how many of us were actually raised up inside of some paradigm for you have to cause or create relationship. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, so when it comes to manifesting, like you're saying, is manifest, if you're going to do the manifestation work or whatever, manifest someone you want to do the work with.
Yeah, exactly.
That you want to go
exactly
with, essentially.
I mean, that's like on Kindred Spirit, on the back of the book, it says, on the first date, are you willing to use this relationship to awaken together? Well, waking up can be painful. It can also be amazing and joyful, but it's not going to be all the time. So we're having to we're in a particular time now where we're really having to let go of any illusions we've had about who we are and create ourselves newly. I mean, that's my big question. Are we going to come out of this whole thing kinder, more generous, more loving people? It's not looking that way, but I'm still holding out that we'll wake up to that it's who we're being, not what we have or what we do, or who are we being? That's the work. And oftentimes work is done in some of the most difficult and challenging environments, and just like Matthew was saying, I don't want to think about relationships like they failed, but failure's not bad. Failure is a fertile ground for growth and development. It's like, well, what did you learn? What did you see? We just hosted a big workshop on the farm, and the person that was leading it was experiencing some failure. And I said, it's okay to fail if you learn something, right? It's like, that's a fertile ground for growth and possibility and opportunity.
In fact, if everyone, all your listeners, all of us think about where we grew the most in our lives, it's through failure, not through success.
Yeah.
The failure of my first marriage was so humbling. I was maybe I'm still an arrogant ass, but I was a more arrogant ass when before I failed at that marriage and was on public display that the spiritual guy failed at his marriage, and very humbling. And from that place, I had a very dark night of the soul experience where I actually experienced being with all the abandoned people on the planet and how that felt, all the people in psych wards and homeless people, and just like I was there with them, like abandoned, and being there and feeling that pain, and then also having this insight of like, I'm still okay. So I don't know what it's going to take, but life's about waking up and to die to our nastiness and our resistance and our selfishness. Take something, and it's not always fun.
So really finding the right person now becomes find the person who wants to wake up with you in terms of waking up to this world.
Yeah. Find the person who wants to do the work, who wants to see the possibility that relationship is, and healing and growth and development. And
And with all that, I know you both really believe in when it comes to being all in, and another thing that could be considered backdoor is a prenup, right? So I think we should talk about money. And I know people get uncomfortable and weird about it in relationship or in general. Why do you think it's so important to be all in?
Well, we say if your money's not together, you're not together. How can you be together? My money's your money's my money. We're one. If your money's not together, then there's you're not completely one. So what are you holding out? You don't trust each other. There's some distrust, or I don't feel like they're going to be there for me, or I'm going to something's up. You're not in a marriage, really, in a full partnership. You're in a partnership, a condition. So that would be conditioned love, not unconditional love.
And we're not saying it's good or it's bad or it's right or it's wrong. We're saying here's another opportunity to look at what's the holdback, what's the mistrust, what has you not be fully in. And again, it's just a fertile ground for insight and growth and development. And I mean, we worked with a couple who, the woman was sharing that she always felt like his parents didn't like her or didn't trust her. There was a prenup in their marriage, and it had a negative impact on the relationship because she had a difficult time feeling like his parents even loved her or appreciated her. And so a lot of our coaching with her was have that conversation, because oftentimes nobody even has that conversation. You find yourself in a lawyer's office and you're signing a piece of paper, and now you've both got lawyers to begin this relationship, but you've never had the conversation about all the stuff that comes up around that. And then you carry that into a relationship thinking that you set that relationship up to win, when in fact that may not be the experience of the people at all. So it's just a fertile place to continue to look at what's behind that. What are you afraid of? What do you mistrust? So, that's our coaching for people.
I love it. And another topic that you guys share about that people listening might not know that you guys practice every day is clearing. And you do this on the farm with other people that are there. Will you share a little bit about that and how it kind of goes into the way that you communicate with each other
Well,
and reframe things.
yeah. So clearing is an exercise that does a couple things. It trains us in listening. So if we were in a live classroom with your audience, Nikki, and we said, how many of you know that if you were better listeners, you'd be better partners, better friends, better husbands, wives? Pretty much everyone would raise their hand. So consider we're crappy listeners. So listening is the highest we say listening is the highest form of loving. Okay, really just dropping in and getting in each other's worlds is such a loving act. So clearing trains one in in listening as loving as listening. It also trains people in recreating it, just saying back what the other person is saying. So if someone says, I don't know, I feel like you're not listening to me. And you say, so what I hear you say is you feel like I'm not listening to you.
And that is today in the world of counseling or psychology or whatever, that's called mirroring.
Yeah.
When we started doing this, I don't think that was
a thing,
but it's called mirroring, which is just saying back what the other person said as verbatim as possible without adding or subtracting. So clearing helps train you in that.
Yeah, training in like listening to the point where you can actually recreate what they say, right? And then just being with it. And then you might ask, and it also gets them, if they're in their head, there's a step in clearing where you ask them, so when your attention's on that, how do you feel? So you drop from your head to your heart, because the feeling is quite important. You want people to be in their heart space. And, oh, yeah, what's going on is I feel like I don't matter and whatever. And so you recreate that. So what I hear you say is you feel like you don't matter. You just hold space for that. And so it trains both parties in this is probably the most important relationship tool, holding space, which means just sitting in a compassionate space without trying to do anything.
Not fixing, not changing, not advising, not coaching, not defending, not arguing, like any of that. So it's just
being there with the other. It's so important.
It's kind of like parenting in a way with toddlers or whatever, or the way that, I don't know if you've heard of Rye parenting.
Yeah.
But kids have their big emotions, and in order to really sit and validate their emotions and not try and fix things, you just kind of sit and listen. And yeah, I love it so much. And I'm curious, when your kids were younger, did you use this as a tool with them a lot when there was conflict? And
no,
and how was that?
I yelled at him and told him to get over it.
I know that you guys, you're in you're in business with your children as well. And so I've heard stories about how, even with like board meetings and stuff like that, I just love you both so much, obviously. And the way that you approach everything in your life is just so beautiful to me. And, I've heard stories that you guys have shared with us where there is conflict and you're just always all about getting in there and sharing and going all in. And this is the way that you do it, right?
Well, I think, so let's just, so back up a little bit, how we raised our children. So remember, I think there's hope in the message of, I was a single mother of 3 children dealing with addiction. And, Matthew coexisted with a brother who had married identical twins, lived in one house with one wallet, and then pursued business and was super busy. But, there were a lot of other people to help him with his kids. So it's like, just because this is what we're practicing and teaching today doesn't necessarily mean we utilized it our whole lives. We learned from our lives to create this practice. Now, as a single mom, and I didn't have any money, my children kind of went everywhere I went. So my children think I raised them with something called attachment parenting because that's now a thing. But I didn't know anything about attachment parenting. I just knew I didn't have anybody else to watch my kids and they needed to come along. And so, my children were with me most of the time. So again, it's like you can take something from our past and apply it to a practice or a methodology today. And it seems like, wow, we did that. Wow, how astute and savvy were we? But no, I think I lived more by survival. And I think, Matthew kind of had this community behind him that helped a lot with his children. So he and Jean could do business. So it's just,
I guess, but let me interrupt really quick, which I'm so glad that you went that far back. I guess when I say kids, I guess they were teenagers by the time you got together, but weren't they younger? I mean, even like 12 years old?
No, our kids were in their
20s.
Yeah, I think the youngest was like 19 or youngest was like 18 or 19. Carrie was the youngest,
that's right, 18.
and Carrie was a teenager, but maybe 17, 18. He was still in high school, so 17 because we went to high school graduation.
But to answer your question, yeah, we have business partners. We have business partners, and we, in the same way that we use our marriage to mirror and see where we're blocked.
Yeah, we
use those same tools in our business partnership.
Yeah.
So yes, we've had board meetings where it could look more like a family blowout, we've done marriage counseling with our partners and their kids, and so there's no separation because it's all relationship, and it's all we're interdependent we're all interdependent, so that relationship is everything.
Yeah.
And so
there's no not relationship.
So there's never like, oh, I'm on the relationship thing or I'm off the relationship thing. No, it's just I'm at 3:00 today, I'm going next door because I've got a next door neighbor that's really pissed with me. And I really just want to blast him for being a big baby and needs a bigger problem. But I know that's not going to work. And I just want to be right and to like completely, just blast him. But I'm not going to. I'm going to just hold space
and listen and recreate him and make requests.
Make requests, apologize.
Yeah.
Make requests, apologize, and acknowledge. That's the game. You can get those 3 superpowers. Besides the listening thing, learn how to apologize, learn how to acknowledge, and learn how to make requests.
And let me so this is super valuable for people. So apologizing is not an assignment of blame. It's not saying you're right, I'm wrong, I'm sorry. It's simply saying I can see that my actions or inactions had an impact on you and I can take responsibility for that. I apologize. And then making a request doesn't mean it's going to go your way. It means this is my request and I'm okay if you say yes, if you say no, which means you probably have to do some work to be okay with the no, or maybe there's a counter offer, a better idea. And then what was the third one? Make request. Oh, acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is for a way of being, not for something people have done. Great. Keep acknowledging people for what they do. But the truth is, if you acknowledge someone for what they do, they have to keep doing it. But if you acknowledge someone for a way of being, that way of being could show up in a myriad of expressions. And so we want to always be building the beingness of one another. And that's how you call people into the biggest, boldest, most beautiful expression of themselves, is through acknowledging the being. And that's the way we grow. That's the way we develop. And that's the way we support the growth and development of people we love and care for.
What do you guys think about boundaries?
Well, people always ask this question. So, okay, so I don't suggest that people stay in abusive relationships. And I don't suggest that when people apologize for their part in an abusive relationship, that means they get back together again. It doesn't even mean they have tea together on Tuesdays. It simply means I can see that I had a part in it. But the idea that sometimes I have the experience that young people create boundaries and expect other people to abide by them. And I think that's another fertile place to have some conversations to look at. Why do I feel unsafe here? Or why do I feel the need to have this boundary? Usually there's more internal work to be done, but I don't want people to interpret this and suggest that I think you have to put up with whatever someone may say or do. But I think there's also a way to respond to it in either, making a request or acknowledging people or sharing what's authentically going on for you. I just know too many situations where people go, oh, whoa, 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 you've crossed a boundary. And it actually creates more friction than it actually creates more of a compatibility or compassion or a win-win. So I just think you have to be aware and conscious about that. I think boundaries are something that need to be communicated, not like
assumed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I'll give you an example. You guys know my situation with my parents,
Yeah.
Yep.
which actually is their divorce is totally finalized, by the way.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I've set this boundary that of with my mom, and it's been like over 15 months now.
And what's the boundary?
My boundary is essentially a wall. I'm not intending to have this wall, but it's like a wall, a temporary wall is the way I see it, until I kind of gather my thoughts around how I feel. But now it's become something that I don't even know how to integrate her back into my life.
Well, here's the kind of 10-second coaching, Nikki, is that's what you want to say to your mom is like, Mom, I felt like I needed to create, because it was really around how she was treating your father, right? While they were going through this divorce, and it became these kids took sides, right?
And I still feel strongly about it. So I think in Matthew's words, it's like, I still feel like I'm holding on to being right.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that's what I'd apologize for. Like, consider there's an apology, and it's like, Mom, listen, I can get this. Because, first of all, what you're holding is you're holding love back. You're holding your children back from their grandmother, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, she's not allowed to see the kids. Yeah. So, Nikki, it's just like, Mom, this is how I felt. This is what was going on for me. I can get that had an impact. I apologize. I still feel, you can still share your feelings. I still feel this way. And I'm also committed that we begin to heal these wounds and take down this wall. And I don't actually know how to do it. You want to be an invitation for your mother to participate with you, as opposed to she somehow has to climb over this wall, right? So an invitation is who I am is love, and I'm here to serve. That's an invitation. So what's the invitation that you could make to your mother? And how she responds is how she responds, right? She may not, but that's where I'd look, Nikki. What's the invitation that you have to make?
So before you think about that, let me just add one thing. So can you see that it's your mother's lack of love, of her own sense of her own self, her own spiritual self, her own infinite self, that has her cling to stuff and money and revenge and all that stuff? Can you see that it's her lack of consciousness that has her behave the way she's been behaving?
Yes, I see that very clearly.
Okay. And so that unconsciousness has triggered your unconsciousness. You're punishing the unconsciousness right now by withholding love. That's
exactly.
You think that you're gonna punish her, so now she feels less loved, less of a failure as a mom. Not only is she a failure as a wife, she's a failure as a mother. She's a failure as a grandmother. So chances are she's gonna slip deeper into the unconscious, right? And so we call this wound on wound. Okay. Her wound has triggered your wound. And it's not that you can't communicate your standards. Yeah, like Tercy said, she did a beautiful job. Hey, Mom, I need your help here. Like, I still feel that it's unconscionable how you treated Dad. I still feel that way, but I'm also not willing to just be
A punisher.
a punisher.
That's not who
I'm
you
not
are.
willing to be a punisher, but I'd sure like to hear from you. There must be a request in here. I'd like to sure like to hear from you. Something. I'd like to hear what you got to. Do you need an apology from your mom? Do you have a request of your mom?
Yeah.
What did it ever? But don't, just withholding love is just now the wound has you, right? And so it just doesn't work. It now because you have to sit in your seat with your two kids in your house and justify. See, you're taking bandwidth right now, justifying your actions to your mom all day long.
Yeah.
And
total 100%.
And so love can't, while you're justifying, love can't fill that space.
Can't penetrate.
So you're taking the poison, expecting someone else to die.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said is totally, you nailed it. And I know this, and so I guess the thing holding me back, which I love, I forgot about making a request.
Yeah,
so I think for me, I feel like I've always been the one reaching out, sharing how I felt, or whatever. Like, I just feel like she's not willing to go there with me, so she just completely ignores it. But I think now I'm sitting and hoping for her to just reach out with an apology of some sort. And instead of, like you said, people can't read your mind. So I can at least make a request and send an invitation.
Yeah.
Of some sort.
And Nikki, remember, it's like you go first. So Mom, I want to take responsibility for this part, and then you can make your request. Like, look and see what can you authentically take responsibility for, and then make your request and let her know. You can apologize. I apologize that I held the kids hostage, but this is how I was feeling,
Yeah.
And all right, now this is whatever, this much is resolved. How are we going to go forward? Because now it's time, like your parents ended one contract and now it's time to create the next contract. What's the next contract going to be? Because you're still family. You're still family. No, a divorce doesn't end that.
And also, and I think we've talked about this before, to have some compassion for your mom who came to a new culture, who was royalty in that culture, who had to leave that royalty, which was a big shock, and survive somehow and adapt somehow. And she did bring you to this more benevolent culture that's better for you and for truth and your family. So, also you can acknowledge at some point for the contribution she has been.
Yeah.
And then Nikki, I'm just curious because I read the Instagram post where you guys had like the opening dinner, and I think your sister did the design or something like that.
Yeah.
So is your sister back fully in the fold? Has that been forgiven? How did that happen? Because she was kind of on Mom's side, right?
So, I mean, to give everyone kind of an idea of what I'm talking about, I think I've mentioned this in the past, but basically, because I've interviewed a divorce therapist or author as well. So basically, what has happened in my family is that I somehow feel more aligned with my dad, and my sister feels more aligned with my mom. And I think that their relationship kind of just like got passed down to my sister and I. So she and I have been working on our relationship. But yes, this whole time she's been working with my dad. There's, tension there at times, but they've been working through it. And my sister has actually kept her relationship with my mom throughout the whole process, which, everyone's different. So for her, she had her baby and also just really feels that she needs my mom's support. And they've worked on their relationship so much in the past that, she just didn't feel, she felt that it was between my mom and my dad and not between her and my mom. Right. And totally see that because that's how divorce typically is. It shouldn't involve the children. But I just kind of felt like I took a different approach to it, obviously. And yes, in some ways I felt like I was protecting my dad, or I felt horror and shock around it. But I also think I was spending so much time with my mom that I almost felt lied to, because behind my back, essentially, like I didn't know anything was going on. And then all of a sudden, my dad got served paperwork that, whatever, someone should take over his company. But anyways, I think really what it comes down to is me sharing in a nice way, because I haven't been very nice about it, my feelings and why I feel affected by it or whatever. And also apologize, definitely, because I know she's so hurt that she hasn't been able to see my children. And the way I saw it was, well, if you can't even have a relationship with your daughter, why would you want a relationship with your grandkid?
Yeah.
And remember when you're sharing your experience, Nikki,
Do it in the first
person. I feel no one can mess with the first person.
Yeah, my experience. And then you take responsibility and apologize for your part in that. And again, it's like you're just kind of unraveling the mushiness between your parents' relationship, your relationship with your sister, and then your relationship with your parents. So,
yeah. And it's so funny because I'm curious what you guys have to say about this, or if I'm sure people have told you this, but every time I use this approach with my sister, even though it works, she gets so pissed every single time. She's like, stop talking to me like that. Stop saying that, because she's like so heated with me calmly using the first person approach and going through the steps, and it just like triggers her.
So all to do is just recreate her.
So what I hear you say,
I know. Here's the thing. Remember, this is a relationship, and you're holding up the mirror. So your sister, what she's pissed at is her own reflection. It's not about you. So again, but you have to do it in an authentic way. You can't be like, an automatic puppet or something. It's like, hey, this is what I'm hearing. I'm checking to see, it's okay. The anger isn't projected at you, even though it may feel like it. It's just, when someone doesn't want to take responsibility, they get angry at the reflection. But it's all right. Just be kind, be generous, be loving. Don't be righteous. Don't be vindictive. It's just like, hey, this is what I'm hearing. I'm checking in. These are my experience. This is my feelings. But you just be careful that it doesn't come across like a script, but it's actually heart-based.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. I love all of your coachings. I definitely have benefited from so many of them. And, the very first one for me was one about my dad in the workshop that just absolutely changed my life and brought me even closer to my dad. And so I really appreciate you guys so much. I love you both so much. And you're doing such important work in this world. And I admire the way you've chosen to live your lives and community.
Come visit us. We miss you. We want you back on the farm.
Oh yeah, I'm planning on it. I was looking at dates. You're so booked up, so I have to take time to go midweek. So I'm trying to figure out if I can bring a few people from my team up there as well in November.
Oh, that's great. Midweek's awesome. Yeah, midweek's awesome. We love that.
I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much, and I'll see you very soon on the farm.